A listener note: this story contains adult content and language.
We're standing near the Bullitt County Courthouse on a muggy afternoon in September, waiting for a 9/11 memorial event to begin. In front of us are rows of mostly empty chairs, a stage with a podium, and a microphone. Hook and ladder trucks are draping massive American flags overhead. We're here in hopes of talking to the Master of Ceremonies, State Representative Danny Ray Johnson. Johnson has crafted himself into a modern-day American patriot. He's pro-gun, pro-God, and pro-life. He's a biker, he's a preacher, he's a self-proclaimed hero. And in November 2016, he rode the Donald Trump train into public office as a state legislator. The story of Danny Ray Johnson's life is like something out of Forrest Gump. As he tells it, he's been right there for some of the country's biggest moments.
Set up the safe zones in Compton and Watts, California, was there during the Rodney King riots. A lifelong worker in the inner city, chaplain during 9/11. Right to Life. I set up the first phone number for Right to Life. An ambassador with the UN for several years. I served as a chaplain to the White House under Presidents H.W. Bush, under William Jefferson Clinton, and also under George W. Bush. Chaplain to the White House.
But we've uncovered a story about Johnson that's very different than the one he tells.
The guy is totally just a manipulator.
There is no record of him receiving an honorary or an earned degree from us here.
He's right there where he can do the same thing again.
He had been drinking a lot at the church that night. He's a drinker.
He was the strong suspect.
Most of what you're about to hear has never been reported publicly. We're going to tell you about mysterious fires, about lies, and also about an allegation that Johnson sexually assaulted a teenager in the basement of his church.
This is a story of lies and exaggerations. It's about a fast-talking preacher turned politician who plays loose with the facts. What does all this say about the state of our union and the institutions we rely on? And how did Danny Ray Johnson pull it off? You're listening to The Pope's Long Con, a 5-part investigation from the Kentucky Center for Investigative Reporting and Louisville Public Media.
Everybody's talking about the seventh son in the whole wide world. There is only one. I'm the one. I'm the one. I'm the one. I'm the one they call the seventh son.
I'm Jake Ryan, and in this story, you'll hear from me and my colleague, R.G. Dunlop. We're going to take you from Bullitt County, Kentucky to Bastrop, Louisiana and back, unraveling the strange and remarkable story of Danny Ray Johnson. Let's start with the 2016 election.
The man who posted images of President Barack Obama with ape-like features pulled out a narrow victory.
The night was full of big surprises, from the White House all the way to the State House. In Kentucky, Republicans seized control of the state legislature for the first time in nearly a century. The trouncing of Democrats extended to House District 49 in Bullitt County, just south of Louisville. Donald Trump crushed Hillary Clinton in Bullitt, winning nearly 3/4 of the vote. And in the 49th district race, political unknown and preacher Danny Ray Johnson beat the popular Democratic incumbent Linda Lou Belcher by just 156 votes. Johnson's campaign was strange from the start. He wasn't the original GOP nominee. He barely campaigned in person. He was criticized, even by his own party, for racist rants on social media. And he made personal attacks against Belcher, a 69-year-old former public school official. Here's R.G. Dunlop.
Johnson's political campaign looked and sounded a lot like that of another political newcomer.
November the 8th, guess what? This is a Donald Trump and Dan Johnson against the likes of criminal Clinton, Hillary Clinton, and lying Linda Lou.
Facebook videos like this one were the fuel for his successful run for office.
Let's defeat them. Let's show them that the good old boys matter.
The videos flooded Johnson's Facebook page leading up to Election Day. He rambles, talks about his life's accomplishments, and aligns himself with Trump. He says the media went out of their way to attack Trump.
The same thing's happened with me. I've had this onslaught of negative media.
In reality, Johnson's campaign got virtually no media coverage. except for stories about his racist Facebook posts.
You're elite people that think that we are nothing. You don't count.
He insults President Barack Obama and Islam. Johnson also batters his opponent, Belcher, with attack after attack.
She has killed over 80,000 babies in the last 20 years. She's been in office 12. She's lobbied for killing babies for 20 years.
No, that is just a fabrication to try and make me look bad.
Belcher is a lifelong Bullitt County resident.
I was a principal and a teacher for 32 years. I've worked very hard to establish a good reputation in this county.
Her husband Larry held the 49th district seat for 6 years before he died in a car accident in 2008. Belcher then served 3 terms. She's a Democrat in a county that's becoming more and more Republican.
Oh, I think people get disenchanted with what's going on in Frankfort and Washington, and we have young people who have different views about what they want. And there doesn't seem to be the party loyalty that there was at one time.
That's where Danny Ray Johnson comes in. He's 57 years old. He calls himself the Pope.
America is great, and it needs to be restored to its greatness.
Johnson was using Donald Trump's tagline long before Trump himself. Several years before running for office, Johnson had made a name for himself in right-wing and libertarian circles.
We're in a country right now that's not loved by a whole world. We're in a country today that's hated by a lot of nations. But I will tell you what I do know and what you know, and what all those countries know, that when there's ever been a need, our country has been there because we do believe in God.
This is Johnson in 2013, before giving the invocation at a Reclaim America Now rally outside the White House. He's wearing a clergy collar and a black suit with a cross around his neck. He's a big guy, about 6'2" and 200 pounds. He's got thinning blonde hair and sideburns.
I've got a lot of friends here today. I've got Americans here today.
At the rally, Johnson introduces himself as Bishop.
I am Bishop Dan Johnson, pastor, founder of Heart of Fire Church, Heart of Fire Ministries.
He talks about his supposedly heroic actions after 9/11. Then he offers a prayer.
Heavenly Father, we come before you. We ask forgiveness. We have worshiped other gods and called it multiculturalism. We have endorsed perversion and called it an alternative lifestyle. We have exploited the poor and called it the lottery. We have rewarded laziness and we've called it welfare. We have killed our unborn and we've called it choice.
A year later, Johnson was back in Washington. This time, it was for a rally called 2 Million Bikers. The crowd was actually less than 100,000. The bikers had come to D.C. to protest a Muslim event.
I am an infidel because I believe in Jesus Christ. I am an infidel because I still love this country. And by the way, I believe the Constitution needs to stay intact. Yeah!
In another video from 2014 on guns.com, Johnson holds an assault rifle and rails against the government, which he'd be part of barely 2 years later. Here he answers questions from Ben Philippi.
Why do you feel it's so important as a Christian to be armed?
I believe, Jesus taught us to be armed, and it is important.
And you got an AK-47 there, I believe.
Yes, it's like one of my favorite home defense, and it's also one of my favorite anti-mean government guns.
It's a gun that works. It's very dependable.
It's dependable. The real reason for our Second Amendment rights is that we have a gun to keep a mean-spirited government off of us, that if they go crazy, we got to have something to be crazier with. So that's what it's for.
All the while, Johnson was building an image of himself and of his church. A pro-gun, pro-biker enclave in southeast Louisville called Heart of Fire. But despite his notoriety, he wasn't even the GOP's nominee for the 49th District in mid-2016. Jennifer Stepp was. Stepp considers herself a true conservative, but after she won the May primary, some members of the tight-knit Bullitt County GOP didn't seem so eager to have her in the race. Stepp says she didn't feel like part of the in-crowd.
You've heard the term rhino, Republican in name only. They would refer to me as that, which is not what I am.
Just days after the Republican primary, a member of Stepp's own party filed a lawsuit saying her candidacy papers weren't valid. a judge ruled in July that she wasn't eligible to run. The county GOP's executive committee considered 4 candidates to replace Stepp on the general election ballot, and they chose Danny Ray Johnson.
They went through all that trouble in a short amount of time to dig up everything on me. Surely they would have found the stuff that you've been able to find and known something about this man's past.
Bullitt County GOP Chair Paul Hamm said he couldn't remember why Johnson appealed to party leaders. He also wouldn't say how he voted or why.
Well, it was a secret ballot, so I don't think I really have to say that, and that we did it again according to the RPK rules.
He did say Johnson ran a clean campaign.
I'm pretty much sure that we did not run a negative campaign. That was Linda Belcher's approach, and I think that's the way it ended up going.
You say Mr. Johnson did not run a negative campaign, but Ms. Belcher did?
In my own opinion, yeah.
Linda Belcher was the Democratic candidate. Here's what Johnson said about her just before the election.
I had someone tell me the other night the reason her feet are red, her shoes are red, is all the blood of all those babies. She's killed over 80,000 babies in just Kentucky. Do you know that our truck the other night was ambushed, roadblocked, threats on my friend's life, but he outgunned them. The police were called. They came to my house. They came to our church. They're holding signs up at our church. They're doing all kind of crazy, threatening my life, threatening my children, my grandbaby's life. We have had death threats. We have had bomb threats on our church. And you know what? They have sent Chicago thugs after me. Chicago thugs after me.
I don't know any Chicago thugs. I really don't. Bombing his church, as I said, I'm a Christian. The last thing I would think of would be harming a church.
During the campaign, Johnson posted images on Facebook showing Barack and Michelle Obama as cartoon apes. He posted a picture of a young chimpanzee with the caption, Obama's baby picture.
Shocking images on the Facebook page of a candidate running for Kentucky state representative.
Another post showed President Ronald Reagan feeding a baby bottle to a chimp. It was captioned, Reagan babysits a young Obama.
He says his Facebook posts are intended to shock.
It wasn't meant to be racist. I can tell you that. My history's good there. But I think, Facebook's entertaining. There's been no president that hasn't had that scrutiny. Not one. I think it would be a racist not to do the same for President Obama as we've done for every other president.
But even his own party disagreed. The state Republican Party chair called the posts outrageous and the rankest sort of prejudice. Both parties asked Johnson to drop out of the race. He ignored them, and the outrage quickly died down in Bullitt County, where the population is over 96% white. He still writes nationalist, racist, anti-Islam posts on Facebook. During the campaign, Johnson mainly communicated with voters through internet videos and posts. You can still find some of the videos with a quick search. Here's one from guns.com.
It's never been like this to me before.
It shows Johnson at a rally at his church giving a tearful and illegal plea for the audience to vote for Donald Trump.
But all of a sudden, I see a flag flying, tears roll down my face. Because we're so close to losing this freedom. We are so close to losing this country. And the American public, our citizens, better realize we are one vote away from a president of either winning this country back or losing it. You better know that. Donald Trump, we need you.
Johnson's online messaging was full of attacks, distortions, and outright lies, even about small things, like an endorsement from Ted Nugent. Johnson said the conservative icon had held a rally for him at Bowman Field Airport.
Heard from Ted Nugent today. We have his endorsement.
But a spokeswoman for Nugent had no record of the event. Neither did the airport. Johnson also made false claims about the Kentucky Family Values Campaign Committee.
Quran, foreign values. That's right, the Quran. It's not Kentucky Family Values that's putting millions of dollars behind her. I want to call them Kentucky foreign values. That's super PAC money. That comes from other countries.
Kentucky Family Values did, in fact, support Belcher financially, but it hardly gave her millions, as Johnson claimed. State records show that the PAC donated about $140,000 to help Belcher's campaign. Despite the lies and the exaggerations, the strategy worked. Johnson won. Belcher said she thought Johnson fed off Trump. This copycat style led to a campaign the likes of which she'd never seen before.
This is not a typical campaign for Bullitt County because I think most people do campaigns based on truth. I don't know that I have seen one with so many fabrications.
Danny Ray Johnson knows we're doing this story. He's made it pretty clear that he doesn't want to see us or talk to us. We've called him. We've emailed him. He agreed to an interview, then changed his mind. Once, when we got him on the phone, he called us fake news and hung up. So we went to the 9/11 memorial he was emceeing to see if he would talk. But before we had a chance to introduce ourselves, he called us out, loudly, by name, across the courthouse square.
Let's get this out of the way right off. Here's your quote, okay? There's a lawsuit pending, so y'all have to leave.
What lawsuit?
One coming up. You'll get it.
Could you tell us more about that?
You'll get it all. It's going to be fully read. It's attorney written. You'll get it.
Well, I'm sorry.
Bye. Y'all need to leave.
In the next chapter, we'll tell you more about Danny Ray Johnson, where he came from, how he got here, and who he is, or at least who he claims to be.
Everybody's talking about the seventh son in the whole wide world. There is only one. I'm the one. I'm the one. I'm the one. I'm the one they call seventh son.
The Pope's Long Con was reported and written by R.G. Dunlap and Jake Ryan. Our producer is Laura Ellis. Our editors are Brendan McCarthy, Erica Peterson, and Stephen George. Music by Kevin Ratterman. You can read this story with lots of extras at kycir.org.